with Scott Allen.
Hello, I am your host, Scott Allen, and this is Phronesis, Practical Wisdom for Leaders. If the topic is leadership, I'm in. I've spent more than 20 years in the field teaching, learning, writing, and questioning. When I'm not working on Phronesis, I travel, delivering keynotes, working with individuals and teams, and helping people from organizations across industries become better leaders. Want to learn more? Visit me at scottjallen.net. Phronesis offers a smart, fast-paced discussion about all things leadership. We explore relevant topics and incorporate practical tips to help you make a difference in how you lead and live. Listen Notes lists Phronesis in the top 3% of podcasts worldwide. Phronesis is the official podcast of the International Leadership Association. ILA brings together those who teach, study, and develop leadership, advancing leadership knowledge and practice for a better world. Learn more at ila-net.org. Finally, if you enjoy Phronesis, please subscribe to stay current on our weekly episodes. If you find an episode that resonates, please share it with your colleagues and friends. And if you want more content, subscribe to my newsletter, The Leader's Edge. The link is in the show notes. As always, thanks for listening. And now, here's today's show. Okay, everybody, welcome to the Phronesis podcast. Thank you so much for checking in. Today, I have Angelica Larios, and she is a business and project manager with more than 20 years of experience in implementing software projects related to business intelligence, planning, and consolidation of financial solutions based on software applications to support the business decision process. She is the founder and CEO of Alacontec, an IT company founded in Latin America. She has held several professional positions in private and public organizations, such as the Health Ministry in Mexico as IT director and as a business manager for several firms in Mexico. She holds a master's degree in business administration and a bachelor's degree in computer science from National University of Mexico, in addition to her studies in project management and her project management professional certification, which have helped her to consolidate her career and have a better understanding on what business and project needs nowadays. She was the first female president of the PMI Mexico Chapter, that's the Project Management Institute, and she has her doctorate in strategic leadership from Regent University, and currently serves on the Ethics Member Advisory Group that supports the PMI Global Operations. And she has held a number of other global volunteer positions. She is the author of several published articles related to leadership and project management, including outlets like PM World Journal. Angelica has been elected as a member of the board of directors for the International Leadership Association, and she is the author of The Female Transformational Leadership, a Pygmalion effect. Wow. Okay. Now, what else do people need to know about you? We are speaking, you're in Mexico City, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. We're in North America. But what else do people need to know about you, Angelica?
Thank you, Scott. Well, I'm very active and a tranquil person. I cannot stay quiet and still, so I really like to be involved in several activities, as you can tell. I'm currently part of research members that started from ILA. So we are researching women and social entrepreneurship. We already published an article, Women Social Entrepreneurs, a conceptual model based on collaborative and authentic leadership styles at the Journal of Entrepreneurship and Organizations. That was the result of colloquium that ILA made a couple of years ago. I believe my team and I weren't the only survivors of that research. So we finally published this year. I'm very, very proud of that. So I'm trying to balance myself between my entrepreneurship activity, because as you mentioned in your introduction, I am the CEO and owner of a consulting company, which I mainly run projects in Mexico and some other countries in Central America. And on the other hand, I volunteer, as you mentioned, for PMI and ILA, being a member of the board. And in my free time, I like to write, read, and research. Very fun.
Oh, that's great. Well, okay. I'm excited because I don't even know that the words Pygmalion effect have been used on this podcast yet. but it's a fascinating topic. And I think that's where we're going to take the conversation today. So maybe bring listeners into what is the Pygmalion effect and what's your area of passion therein. I'm excited to hear this.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Well, yes, I'm glad to hear that this is kind of new in your podcast. It's a very passionate aspect. I believe it's more related to psychological field. However, and you always might know that leadership is based on a lot of interdisciplinary fields. So Pygmalion effect is known as the influence a person can exert on others based on the image that has of that person. So the beliefs about that person can affect the performance of the second person. Let's say that's the definition, right? Where does the Pygmalion effect comes from? From Greek mythology. There was a king of Cyprus found difficulties of falling in love with an ideal woman because he couldn't find the perfect person. And he used to have a sculptor, which name was Pygmalion. So he decided to make a sculptor, perfectly lady, beautiful, has everything, all the characteristics he needed, named Galatea. So when the king saw this statue, he fell in love immediately. And he started to wish truly in his heart that this statue become a real woman. So the myth says that when you truly believe in something, it becomes real. So this is the origin of this aspect. Other familiar example that probably the audience will relate to is the story of a book very famous from George Bernard Shaw.
Sure.
So it's a similar story about Lisa Doolittle, which is a lady that becomes an upper class lady, raised to the sponsorship and the belief that the professor had in her, so she became fabulous lady. So I am talking about this on my book, as you mentioned, because according to my experience, and probably this is very subjective if you want, but I've seen a lot of people in Mexico, in Latin countries where I have a lot of interaction, sometimes in USA as well, that women don't believe in themselves enough to achieve more or apply for other positions, other responsibilities. And I am relating this aspect to the book in the transformational leadership because I really, have read, I have researched that transformational leadership is natural to women. We, by nature, transform others. So if we believe in others and we believe in ourselves enough, we can accomplish more. So this is what I'm talking about in my book.
Well, okay, so there's a lot there, which is great. So the Pygmalion effect is if I believe that you believe in me, that you think that I can accomplish great things, that if you see good in me, then I am more likely to believe that in myself. Is that a simplistic summary of the Pygmalion effect?
Correct. That will improve your self-esteem. And of course, you will believe and then be sure that you can accomplish whatever you want, your goals. Yeah. You can see it as a very familiar example as we are today celebrating the International Women's Day. Everybody can relate to very simple example, their family, their mother. When you used to be a kid, your mother, what did it tell you? I believe in you, keep on going, you will achieve, you will get great things in life. Unfortunately, the opposite is also true in this Pygmalion effect, and I recall that you and I had a conversation about this before. The opposite also gets into this mainframe, because when I don't believe in others, my attitude changes towards them. Yeah. So if I don't believe in a friend or coworker or an employee, and I start telling negative things or I start expecting negative things from them, they will start doubting on themselves, having this hesitation of doing the things. So it works both ways. So it also, when you believe in others and believe enough and you send a positive message and this person starts achieving, it's a cycle, right? It's a virtual cycle.
Yes. Well, and so let's go a little bit deeper on women and the Pygmalion effect. I mean, I think you said something pretty powerful a few moments ago, but can we go there if you would? How do you think about this with specifically women in organizational life or women in leadership?
Correct. Well, as I was mentioning, I believe a woman naturally has a transformational leadership. The thing is that we have to develop that leadership and we have to do the steps necessarily to have more responsibility, to search for other opportunities, but also to have this support that all women we need from each other. And in my research and also in my book, I include 15 cases because I'm a very practical person. I like to think about real people, right?
Yes, yes.
So I included 15 people for flesh and blood that we can all relate from them. And there are very important messages there. For example, it's included there the first CEO in Nissan, a woman in Nissan. This lady was a Mexican. She was the first one who held a position like that. And she relates in her story that she was like, well, if someone invited her to be part of a board, she didn't even know what a board was. But then she said, yes, you know what? Like, yes, I can. So she has this type of thinking that if somebody else can, I do, and I will. And she was believing that she could achieve more and more. And she started doing it, and she was very successful. So the thing is, I believe women are very capable as well as men. We are equal in terms of capacities, abilities, you name it. The thing is that we need to start doing the things that's necessary, believe in ourselves, and support each other. So we need to create programs where incorporates in organizations. It's not only the policy that we have to accomplish X number of women and men, but also have the opportunity to break the glass ceiling and support women in the top. And also it's a responsibility for women that have achieved the highest level, let's say in the organization, in whatever, to open the path for other women to come.
Yes. I mean, as I understand it, it's, high expectations lead to that improved performance. And especially if I'm modeling having achieved, and now I am kind of placing those high expectations in the belief that others can meet those expectations. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I also think of this, at least a cousin of this concept is, am I acknowledging when people have met those high expectations? It's more likely they're going to work at that level again, especially if I'm acknowledging, even in my daughter, for instance, if I am saying to her, wow, I'm so proud of you for working hard like we discussed. I see it. You're doing it. She's more likely to engage in that behavior moving forward than not.
Yeah, that's right. You get it. You totally get it. And this is also true. It's also been proved the Pygmalion effect in academia, in scholars, and also students and professors. When the professor has a high level of expectation of any student, it's more likely that this student will achieve more than when the professor has low expectation for the student and the student will not improve. And that's the thing. So that will happen with your daughter, that happens in the schools, that happens in academia, it happens also in real life, in corporates, in business. So we have to give ourselves the chance to make things happen.
Tell me a couple more case studies that stood out for you based on your research. What were some other stories that you'd like to highlight or listeners might be interested in? What else comes to mind?
As I was mentioning, I included different types of women personalities. Some of them known very well in the United States, some of them known in Latin America, and some of them not known enough. So, for example, I included Maribel dos Santos, is the CEO of Oracle Mexico. Oracle is a big company, a technological company.
Incredible.
Which my company is partner of them. So I'm very proud to see a woman. She was born in Venezuela, but she developed a career in Mexico. So she says things like that. The first thing is that you have to trust in yourself. We already discussed that. Trust that you really can handle the responsibility, that you can apply for a position, but many women wait to be seen.
Yep.
In her words, she says, the diversity means that you are invited to a party, and inclusion that you are invited to dance. I'm telling you to stop waiting to be invited to dance. Prepare for when the party is and not be 100% ready. Do not wait to be completely prepared. Men jump in and take the positions that are not 100% ready. Third, jump in and raise your hand. Get ready for the role and get prepared to understand when these opportunities are. When the chances are there, take them, because if you are preparing 100%, that is not your position. This is another. Nobody hires you in your comfort zone. So I really like this part because you are hearing the voice of someone that has really achieved something big. She is the Oracle head in Mexico, Latin America. She has opened a program inside Oracle, at least in Mexico, for women to develop themselves and so on. And she said something very interesting because this is reality. This happens a lot in the field. You can see women see a position, job description, and ponders all the aspects they need to have. And they say, oh, no. I have only 90% of them. No. I have to wait until I'm full, right? Until I fulfill all the description. Men are not like that. They say, oh, come on, I have 40. Yes, let's go. Right? So,
yes.
So what you say is when you are already fulfilling all the job description, you are not there. You belong to the next step. And women are tied down by themselves or others to just be waiting for. It's not about, you need to be ready and go.
Well, it's interesting as you speak. I was reminded of my son and just differences. And again, this is a sweeping generalization, listeners. I know that. But it is funny, though, because I'll never forget my son. This is probably 5 years ago. We were at baseball. And he'd had a very, very lackluster game. I think he had maybe connected once. He made one play in the field, but then he struck out 3 other times and had a few. It wasn't just 1 or 2 errors, but it was a few errors. And we were getting into the car and I said, so how was your game? And he said, awesome. Well, I don't know that was awesome, buddy, but I'm glad you believe.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I think that sticks with men sometimes throughout their lives.
Yes. I don't know if it's a cultural aspect or not, but this is also true when you're, let's say, older and men go to the seat in the mirror and say, oh boy, like you, for example, oh, look at my gray hair. I'm beautiful. This bird, wow, handsome. Let's go. Let's do it, right? And women are like, oh my God, look at this hate. I see myself horrible. Oh, the wrinkles. No. So certainly I don't know where this is coming from, but somehow women tend to criticize more and be more autocritical. We have to do the opposite.
Well, and I think to your point, having those role models and having individuals communicate, not only role modeling, serving in some of those very, very elite positions on the global stage, but then also communicating and modeling for others that you too can achieve what you put your mind to. And having those role models and having those expectations for others and belief in others, that's critical. It just is.
It is. Fortunately, I've seen other new generations coming through work, new environments. And thanks God, they have another chip. They are more open to experience. Now, young women generations are fighting for the same rights, same positions, which I believe is good. It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote this book for whoever wants, of course, to read it and find some value in there. But the highest mission I aspire to achieve is to inspire women overall, those that are in the middle career, in the middle ages, that still are struggling to believe in themselves, that read the book and find examples, as I'm telling you, real person that made it. And if they made it, you can also make it in whatever is your field, whatever it is that you are doing. You have to believe enough in yourself and do the consequential steps to achieve the goals that you are planning for yourself.
Yes. Yes. So I'm going to switch gears on a slightly right now.
Okay.
But, you have this background in project management, and that's another area that I don't know that those words have ever been spoken on this podcast, much to your chagrin, I'm sure. But
Great.
So what do you see as the opportunities in project management and this topic leadership, just in general? Is it something that is sorely needed in that space, the training around leadership and really successfully preparing people to serve not only in these very, very technical roles of project management, but then I'm leading a team and am I doing that side of it effectively as well? So would you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Thank you, Scott, for opening that opportunity also. Well, project management has been around us, I would say, forever. Because we run projects for everything and everywhere, but we don't realize that we are doing projects. Yeah. And we don't realize that there's a proper way to running projects. So according to PMI, what they say is the project manager equals to a leader. This is quite interesting because as a project manager in charge, you need to develop these leadership skills in order to coordinate people, resources, achieve goals, negotiate, communicate, motivate, inspire, because otherwise it won't be possible to achieve any objectives or any goals in this specific project. On the other hand, since I've been around for ILA some years now, I've seen many interesting people focus on teaching and learning, researching, leadership, but having no clue about what a project is.
Yes.
You know what is necessary nowadays? You have to, for example, run a research project. You need to have at least the basic project skills to schedule activities, have a deadline, have specific points to see and understand your scope, your time. And I don't want to go very technical here, but the message here is project management is very needed when you want to do research, when you want to create training, when you want to publish a book. Everything is needed. So as for me, having both areas of expertise and both mindsets, I can see opportunities in both areas where project management can be enriched by leadership, because a project manager is a leader, and leaders are in need of project management skills in whatever they are doing. I am talking here only about academia, researcher, but let's think about running a company, an organization, an institution, a non-profit organization. Every single person that is ahead of an organization has to have project management skills.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And I think as you were just speaking now, I was reminded there's a quote, and it was a futurist who said this quote. It was Joel Barker who said this, but he said that vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes time. Action with vision changes the world. And it should have probably been vision with action changes the world is how I probably should have just said that. But, you get into these conversations sometimes of, well, are you a leader or are you a manager? Well, you are both, hopefully, because you can sell the vision of where we want to go. But an individual like Steve Jobs, given all of the foibles that he had, which is significant at times, he had a vision, that vision came to fruition often. And so it's this unique individual that can really blend both the big thinking and the future orientation with now we are actually going to move towards that and achieve what it is we said we wanted to accomplish. So this project management side of it, I think, to your point, is so incredibly important because you might be elected president based on your vision, but are people better off 4 years later? And the same could go for an organization or a nonprofit organization. Do you blend both of those skills really beautifully? And I just think it's so critical. So I love that you bring that perspective to the table, because I think oftentimes in leadership, we don't talk about this other side enough. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You're right. And Project Management Institute has been a lot of emphasis and is searching ways to upper the level of a project manager inside of each organization, searching for having, for example, chief of project management position type of thing. Because as you mentioned, it's critical. I would say that every organization runs based on projects, everyone.
Yes.
Your university, you have to rephrase the program for students, for example, you have to do it with a project.
Yep.
So projects are essential everywhere. And yes, now that you mentioned about my position, let me tell you, I was the first woman in the local chapter, like 13 years ago or something like that.
You served as the first female
I was, yes.
president of the PMI chapter in Mexico, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was very great for me to celebrate the 50 years of the chapter back then. Now the chapter is around 26, 27, something like that. And I'm very glad because they have a local woman community. And sometimes they invite me to talk or discuss something. And nowadays, after me, I opened the bridge for, after me, 4 women presidents of the chapter. Which was great. And up to date, all other chapters in Mexico, for example, Guadalajara, Puebla, Monterrey, have women in the head position. So I'm very proud, Scott, as we mentioned before, that we have to open the path for others to come. I'm very glad to see that other women following the steps I just left there. It was not like I opened the path and nobody came right after me. No, I'm very glad because we have more women getting into VP president positions. And it was not easy. I mean, if nowadays it's not easy because let's say there are discrimination, restrictions, ideas, biases of what a woman can do or cannot do. Imagine 13 years ago. So I have to apply my leadership skills, as you mentioned it, to negotiate with others, to communicate my vision of what I wanted to do back then, what I was aspiring to for project management at the local chapter to do in the following years. Well, also it's important to see, one hand, the resilience that you have to have as a leader, but the other one, that understanding, and that's a key point here in our discussion, that understanding that we are humans. And even where we are trying to achieve greater things, we have our goals and we want to make them true. There's always room for improvement. And there's always something that you didn't do or just didn't do it correctly.
Yep.
So sometimes we are very hard on ourselves for that space. We have to, also in this transformational leadership that we haven't discussed that much, but I am based on 2 models. The model of Koseff and Posner.
Yep, leadership challenge.
The book. Yep. And at the end of their model, the 5th step is celebrate, encourage with the heart, celebration. Sometimes we are that into the corporate thinking and objectives, numbers, achieving whatever, that we forget that we are humans and we forget this tender nature that women have of being caring, being collaborative, celebrate. As I was saying, back then, of course, I would love to have achieved more, but I'm very glad to what I did, that my steps are still there so other women can continue my contribution, my original contribution. And that's what is important. So we have to celebrate that we have a woman community in Mexico for PMI.
Oh, good.
That we have more women in other spaces. We have to celebrate. We have to encourage them and say, hey, you can. And then it comes what we were talking at the beginning.
Yes.
We believe in ourselves. I believe in other women can do it. I support them and we continue growing.
Yep. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, as we begin to wind down our time today, is there anything else from the book or from the PMI space that you want to highlight that stands out for you?
Was a good question. It's a very good question. Let me tell you something else about my book and the topic that we are discussing about the woman. When I was preparing the book, I was doing some research about the status of women in the work field, work and environment. So I present some very interesting data graphics from the International Labor Organization, where we are still fighting for equity. And what I mean for equity is not only having the same numbers of employees for each gender, but also I'm talking about being paid equally and having equal opportunities. And sadly, as you can see in many of the graphics I prepared and I presented this book, is that are still very discrepancies in the position of women. Women tend to occupy administrative roles, middle management roles, and still from Mexico up to Argentina, in all Latin America, we have, for the same work done, men get more pay than women.
Yep.
So in a data for today, for women, I don't know when this podcast will be listening, but I truly believe that it's important they know that we are recording this today because it's a highlight. We need to commemorate the fighting for this woman in New York where labor conditions were not good enough for them. And they had to start fighting 100 years ago for similar rights. And we are still fighting for that position. Although most of the countries can vote, now we achieved that right. But we are still fighting for pregnancy or abortion or other women's rights. And in the economic field, we are still fighting for being paid equally for the same job description for men. So it's also interesting to see this type of graphics I'm including in here. I'm talking also a little bit about entrepreneurship, which is another area where women try to find a place for them. Like myself, for example, I decided to abort searching for jobs and I started my own company. And with that has a lot of risk, also satisfaction. I have faced all type of situations related to what we are talking here about, women and men. Sometimes my customers don't like me because I am a woman. Sometimes I have to fight because you have no idea what kind of negative comments and words such as, what are you doing here? You should be in the kitchen. I was like,
Really?
oh my God. Yes. I also have another sad example because I was invited to participate in a negotiation with a company. And after being in agreement to have a meeting, we received a call from the secretary and she was saying something like, excuse me, I have a question. Is there any woman coming for the meeting? We said, yes, of course we are. Why? Because we have a problem here. And the problem is that the men in this company like to talk very rude and use bad words. What?
Wow.
So we really don't want to have any woman in the meeting. And I was like, really? No, sorry, because I am the head of the organization. I'm a woman. And the project manager who's going to be in charge of what you want to do as a project back then was a woman as well. So after having some discussions internally, we decided that we shouldn't go for that business because it was against the values of my organization, which is having equal opportunities for women and men and not discriminating anyone for its gender. So imagine that. And I can tell you several examples. So I'm talking about entrepreneurship here because according to statistics, most of women, at least in Mexico, initiate a small business because it's the only way they find to equilibrate or to balance their personal life, being as a mother, taking care of children, taking care of the family, and have some income. And unfortunately, as we are talking about leadership and project management skills, for most of these women that start a small initiative and as an entrepreneurs, they fail under the 2 years because of the lack of these important skills that we are talking, project management and leadership. So I invite to your audience to, if we want to recap or resume, I would like to invite your audience to, especially women, to believe in themselves, to prepare themselves, to therefore other initiatives in whatever position they are now. Don't be 100% ready. Don't wait to be invited there. Go for it. If you want to be an entrepreneur, prepare yourself. You can do it, but it takes a lot of hard work. And once for the women that have already achieved and are in the highest position, help other women, help others to come, give opportunities for women, establish programs for women. And also very important, not forgetting that world that is made by men and women. And my speech is not hate against men, because I am very convinced that without you, we cannot do anything. So it's important also to be in partnership with you guys, because sometimes you guys support us and help us to develop our careers and our family lives. So that's what I'm gonna share, Scott.
So I always close out with a conversation about what you've been reading or streaming or listening to. What has caught your attention in recent times? It doesn't have to have anything to do with what we've just discussed, but is there a resource that you have found beneficial that listeners might be interested in? Something you've read or something you've listened to or something you've been streaming, or just an organization you want them to know about?
Well, as you're mentioning to me, and I believe this is a high topic right now. Everybody's talking about intelligence, artificial intelligence.
Yes.
This is something that comes up everywhere. Everybody is trying to leverage of this new technology, but we have to be very careful, because as it opens an opportunity and opens a windows, it also comes with the highest risk. And I'm not against technology, as I'm telling you. Technology. I've been working on technology for years.
Yes.
And I think that we have benefit ourselves in many aspects for technological applications and internet. As we are having this meeting and this conversation now based on technology, it's a good thing. But we will have to be very careful to this open of artificial intelligence in our fields. Not to be afraid of being replaced by, but use them in an intelligent way. So we have to read more, be cautious, be aware that this is there, and how we are gonna make it to use them in our favor. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking here in our favor as entrepreneurs and leaders, researchers, academics, and so on, because everybody's looking now in that direction. So all the information I'm sharing here, probably you are gonna ChatGPT tell me about it. Are you gonna find it there? But humans are still needed. We need still this contact, this experience, this conversation. How I'm gonna transmit you my ideas if you are not listening to me? I don't think artificial intelligence is gonna give you the experience I am sharing with you now, or vice versa. So this is the case I'm searching for, reading and using.
Learning about AI, learning about the future, thinking about how that intersects with leadership is just absolutely fascinating. A listener, Gary Lloyd, had suggested I read the book, The Coming Wave, which was just incredible. And so, yes, I mean, we are going to hear more and more and more about artificial intelligence and how it's shifting the landscape, like a lot of other things. But oof, wow, yes, a lot of these disruptive technologies, blockchain, artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, it's just a fascinating future that we're moving into. Well,
yes.
I am so thankful for your time today. I am thankful for the good work that you do in the world. And Angelica, we'll do it again.
Thank you, Scott. I'm very, very thank you for your invitation. Thank you to your audience. You can find me in different social media. You can find my books on Amazon and Google Play Store and Apple stores. Under my name, Angelica Larios. You can also visit my webpage, angelicalarios.com.
Thank you so much again. It's just been such a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you in November in Chicago.
I hope so too.
Okay. Well, be well.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. Charting new ground. Again, I don't think we've ever said Pygmalion effect or project management on this podcast. that's a crime in many ways. But, I think for me, as I listen to that episode again, I think of leaders are blazing new ground. And this is an individual who is blazing new ground in Mexico. And I just have great respect for that. Not only is she focused on her scholarship and getting degrees, but she is embedded in the work and she is blazing new ground. And I think that's what leaders do. In the next episode, you're going to hear Keith Grint talk a little bit how he thinks about leadership management, command, followership. And in this case, I think Angelica's blazing new ground. So thank you, as always, for checking in, everyone. Take care. Be well. You have just finished another episode of Practical Wisdom for Leaders with Scott Allen. To contact me, visit scottjallen.net or send me a note at scott@scottjallen.net. I'm also on LinkedIn, so let's connect. If you have feedback, I'd love to hear it. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And now here's my daughter, Emily, with the outro.
You've been listening to Phronesis, Practical Wisdom with Scott Allen.